when is it effective? When's the best deep cranking time? And we kind of moved from from the shallow bite that we were talking about and the shallow cranking stuff. And this is where this is relative too to what part of the country you're in, because April in the north is still pre-spawn, but down here April is starting to get into post-spawn. So most of your deep cranking, what I'm going to be basing this seminar off of, is more your Midwest to southern impoundments. That's where I think of deep cranking being most effective a lot. So early post-spawn, April through June, I kind of wrote it like that. April through June, that kind of seems to be the best time to me. The first fish that move out, and it's best after the spawn and fish group up. So what I mean by that, and when the first, we were just talking about that earlier when I got here today with some of the guys in here working with us, and we were talking about Guntersville, and when those first fish that move out are the ones that are really, really active, and they're schooled up fast, so when they spawn in March or they spawn in early April, the first group of spawners, when they first move out, they go through that little post-spawn lull that they don't bite real good, and then all of a sudden, they pile up and they go. Sometimes it's the deepest place they go. Some of them will go right off to the very 20-foot deep ledge or mussel bar, shell bed right away, and they'll group up and they'll be just fired up, and that's when you'll throw that big crankbait out there and you'll catch one like every cast, and you get them fired up and you catch 10, 15 in a row. I've caught 50 and 100 in a row in different times of year. Remember, especially back in the good old days at Kentucky Lake. Kentucky Lake has kind of gotten ruined with all the Asian carp, unfortunately now, and I'm hoping it's going to come back in the future. But man, the days that I had on Kentucky Lake cranking, back in the Bassmaster days in probably the early 2000s, mid 2000s, that catching 50, 75 fish, straight in a row off of one spot. And I mean, you don't get any better than that. If we'd have had the no limit format back then, those tournaments would have been unbelievable. But when they first come up and they first group up, that's when they're really trying to put that feed bag back on. So after they spawn and they stay up there and they go through the garden to fry after they spawn and all that, and then that first group of fish seems to be the fish that are the most aggressive, the first ones to get out there. And the other thing about the first wave of fish to get out there is that everybody hasn't found them yet. So now in the age of pressure and electronics, everybody now knows how to do it, because a lot of us, we tell you everything we know on these seminars, so it's really no secrets anymore anywhere hardly that I know of, honestly. And everybody's got the right electronics, got the right baits, equipment, everything else. So as soon as people go out there and they find out that they're out there, they're going to start catching them, and then they're going to tell everybody. They're going to put it on Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter and everywhere else, and everybody starts coming, and all of a sudden you'll see here at Guntersville, even though I'm gone a lot during this tournament season, I'll come home and you can tell when the fish are on the bank, and you can tell when they're offshore, because all you got to do is take off running up the lake, and you'll see the boats everywhere in the middle of the lake, or you won't see a boat anywhere in the middle of the lake. And what I like is when you run out there and it's like April 25th and they're still on the beds, all up in the pockets, and you're running, you don't see nobody out there on the main lake, and you stop out there on one of those mussel bars and you idle over it, and you see 20 dots, down there 17, 18 feet deep, and that my mouth's watering, because nobody's fished for them yet, because no boats are out there, and that's the ones you turn around in the first cast, second cast, third cast, and just bam, 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 and that's when it's a lot of fun. So that's what I mean by April through June, depending on where you're at, and that first group of fish. So my one tip in that little segment is to start earlier. Go out there sooner than you think, so even if their fish are still biting shallow, and you can still go over here and throw a Senko, and that's a lot of fun, and you can still watch them cruise around and come up and get your Senko off top. I love that as much as anything. But if they're out there grouped up and you hit them before everybody else does, man, it's lights out, and that's the best crank.
Shoot, folks, information is pouring over. If you want to learn more about every lake, how to fish shallow, deep, in between, skipping docks and rocks and cranking, slow wiggling, chatter smattering, you get it at Bass U. Get on Bass U TV, check it out, sign up, be a member, be part of it, folks. Keep learning.